Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining. Today I have Mango, specifically Rich, the head of partnerships over there at Mango, and we're going to discuss a couple different things. We're going to really cover the importance of integrating remote hiring and VoIP solutions into your dental practice, how you can get ahead of the curve and continue to modernize your practice. To give a brief agenda of what to expect out of this webinar, we're going to start with Rich introducing himself and Mango. I'll follow that and introduce myself. We're going to discuss the problems that dental practice owners are running into, owners, administrators, staff. We're going to speak on the impact of those issues and how you as a owner, administrator, or staff member are really able to get ahead of the curve with a couple of solutions. So Rich, first of all, great to see you. I'll hand off to you here and definitely give the free reign to introduce yourself.
Well, thanks so much for that. And really glad we could put this together. I think our companies work really well together. And yeah, I mean, really briefly about me, I've been at Mango Voice now for over 2 years. And before that, I did work quite a bit in communications as well, just in a different field. But for those that don't know about Mango Voice, we are voice over IP, which is internet phones, essentially. And we are a phone provider for thousands of dental practices all throughout North America. And what makes us kind of different is our support is really great. We focus really heavily on making sure the core features of your phone work. And, we integrate with a lot of the different dental softwares that are out there. And we play really nice with companies that have virtual assistants or have, companies like Edge, especially. That's why we're doing this, right? We help facilitate their needs, they help facilitate our needs, and we work really well together. But yeah, in a nutshell, I work on the partnership and business development side. So always working, meeting lots of different dentists and doctors in the field out there. Go to a lot of different trade shows and definitely run into a lot of different doctors and talk to them about their specific needs and different headaches they have with their phones. And Mango, most of the time, tends to alleviate a lot of their stress and help out with a lot of their problems that they have. So that's kind of me and Mango in a nutshell.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that introduction. When I joined Edge back in February of 2022, in speaking to a lot of dental practices that either had made a switch to Mango or were thinking about it, the constant feedback I heard on Mango was that it is the top VoIP solution for the dental space and a couple other industries, but really the dental space and the amazing feedback. So it really became a priority for us here at Edge, our marketing team, to go out and build this partnership. So we're thrilled to do so. To take a step back for a second, my name is Ahmed. I lead our sales team over here at Edge. And for those of you unfamiliar with Edge, the easiest way to think about us is being able to provide remote employees to your practice that are able to help in that front and back office space, whether it be patient facing, whether it be more administrative tasks behind the scenes. We're connecting practices with global remote talent that are able to get started right away and ultimately provide a ton of value to your practice in a time where staffing has been a little bit of a headache. Now, when we jump into some of the issues that practices are facing when it comes to technology, phone systems, VoIP solutions, Rich, I ask you, what do you typically hear?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say this is the number one thing that comes up is usually doctors, office managers describing the pain points they have, like with their phones currently, right? And I mean, aside from just drop calls and just old service, I mean, like as you can see here, just kind of the bullet points that we have, a lot of them have outdated or obsolete phone systems, meaning they just either they've inherited an old phone system or they just bought what was ever available to them, what was local, what was easy, what was simple, and it didn't turn out to be that simple or easy. It was actually complicated and tends to be like outdated, right? Because there's so many new features out there that we could provide that these doctors just are missing out on, right?
Right.
And support is like a huge thing, right? Like we're running into this all the time that these doctors just cannot talk to like a real person and they can't seem to like get an answer to like their questions. And I think this is it's an interesting that we talk about this because the same problem that doctors have getting like being able to talk to like a live person or having someone pick up the phone is the same problem you solve for doctors, right? Like you guys actually facilitate this for them by having, good people on the other side of the phone,
Right.
right? Um, because they don't want to miss their calls. And this number is like crazy to me. And most practices don't know this until we identify this or tell them this. But the average dental practice is missing about 35% of their calls. And most have no way of checking that. They have no way of knowing that. And that's what VoIP allows you to do. Like we have, Mango specifically has metrics. We have analytics that can tell you when you're missing those calls, who called. Will help you identify whether or not that was a patient that was actually calling, or if it was just a spam call or a wrong number call, and which is highly valuable, right?
Right.
But I mean, if you look at this, like what we're presenting right here, so the average new dental patient will generate at least $850 a year in revenue, give or take, right? I mean, that's just depending on where you are and what that patient actually needs, right? Can you imagine, 35% of your calls being missed and missing out on that much revenue as like a practice owner, especially how much we hear about, how difficult it is to get funds today and how hard it is to, get new money, or just how expensive things are, right? And you have spent all this money on marketing dollars. You've got a service like Edge, right? You have these remote employees that are answering calls and everything for you, and because of your phone system that's either outdated or you're not using Mango or Edge, you're missing out on 35% of your calls at an average of $850 per missed call for the year. Like that's insane to me, and it all adds up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
And then I mean,
dramatic number. And Rich, a lot of the times when we're speaking with practices, they're telling us, and I'm curious what this number is for you, but they're receiving hundreds of phone calls a day, right? And missing 35% of those, that's a ton of revenue missed.
Yeah, I mean, and every practice is different, right? I mean, some are big or small, some are more saturated with population than others. But I mean, your average practice is going to have anywhere from 100 to 200 calls a day. I mean, just because there's such a wide range there. But even if you just had 100 calls a day, and of those 100, let's just say, 50 of them are new patient calls that are trying to get scheduled, and you're missing 35% of those, right? And that's huge, right? And so the numbers definitely add up. And I think where Mango and Edge really work together really well, right, is with the I hear this problem probably more than anyone, because people ask us, well, what do I do about my staff and training them? And I'm like, well, I can't really help you with that. Like, I mean, training for Mango is pretty easy. Like you can schedule a training with us anytime. Like you can just call our support line and we'll do a demo and train, people on how to do, and we have online modules, we have YouTube tutorials, we have all kinds of ways to train.
Right.
I can't help them get good people though, right? Like I can't, that's not where we come in. That's more where you guys come in and you guys help facilitate that, right? But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of common VoIP problems that we see, specifically support, missed calls, dropped calls, loss of revenue because of those calls, and Mango is the solution, right? Mango jumps in, and we can typically solve all of these problems for dental practices.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, some of these numbers are backbreaking, right? The amount of revenue lost just by missed calls alone, and we understand from a consumer perspective how it is, right? If I call someone to schedule an appointment and they're not answering, typically I'm going to that person's number one competitor down the street, right? So absolutely backbreaking numbers.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a perfect example. I'm not a dentist. I'm a dental patient, right? So
right.
I am the guy that goes to the chair, right? I'm the guy they're trying to get in and collect money from me and my insurance, right? And I'll tell you, there's a dentist right up the street from me that I go to. And the reason I go there is because they picked up the phone. I called two others that I just Google searched dentists in my area. And the first two that popped up, I called them, didn't speak to anyone, right? And the third one I called was this guy up the street, and they picked up the phone. And so that's how I found my dentist. And literally because someone picked up the phone, and they were nice, they were pleasant, they were, informative, and they took time. They were patient with me because I'm just a guy and I don't know even sometimes the right questions to ask. And they were very helpful and, took time to hear out, some concerns or questions that I had. and then got me on the schedule, right? And then I came in, and they've been my dentist for 4 or 5 years now, right? And I go to them regularly. So I'm a perfect example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you speak on missed calls, right? And how that leads to missed revenue. And on our end, right, with Edge specifically, some of the key hiring issues revolve around the same thing, right? While we may have signed up with Mango, we don't actually have anyone to pick up the phone, right? Why is that? It's because the people in the front office that are in person are typically serving patients, right? And in patient facing roles. And it's very, very difficult for them to not only serve patients, to answer the phone calls, and do all of the administrative tasks that are related. When we really boil this down, what we have found specifically in 2023 heading into 2024 is that there are 1.5 million fewer Americans in the overall labor force, right? Naturally, hiring is difficult as is, right? It's hard to trust someone that you have met for an hour to really be a representative of your front or back office. Now, all of a sudden, you have way less people who qualify for the role. It's taking significantly longer, right? 3+ months on average to fill an open front office position. And typically what this does is any of the staff that are there are becoming overwhelmed, because to your point, not only are they patient facing, right? They're serving as a dental assistant, they're having to answer phone calls, they're rescheduling and scheduling patients, and doing any of the other 15 to 20 tasks that a typical front or back office individual does. Unfortunately, in today's world, we've also seen that most new hires from local markets are lasting less than 12 months, with the average being 3 to 6 months. So to spend a ton of time training someone only for them to leave in a short period of time can, similar to those missed calls, can be extremely backbreaking to practices. Most sources, right? We think about Indeed, ZipRecruiter at one point were really, really strong sources of employment, but now have become a lot more difficult to navigate, as you're getting a lot less qualified individuals. Now, when we look at the impacts of these issues, right, we spoke on one specifically, which is revenue. But I'm curious if you could break this down for us a little bit more. What type of impacts are you seeing the dental practices face prior to joining with Mango?
Yeah, so this is a nice case study that we did, and we often share, with people that are like worried considering Mango, right? And I might just jump ahead here a little bit and say, because we talked a lot about the 35%.
Yeah.
But the reality is with Mango is that we have automations in place, and we have features in place that A, will allow you to not miss those calls, but B, it can engage people, right? So I would imagine that a dental practice using Mango and Edge is probably falling into like the average Mango customer range, which is actually around 15% of missed calls only. So that's huge, right? But
yeah, oh yeah.
Let's talk about this case study real quick. So we'll just tell this story. Let's assume you're a one doctor practice seeing patients on Monday to Thursday, which is like the doctor dream, right? Like I hear doctors talk about this all the time. They want to have a 3-day weekend, and I mean, I don't know for sure. Like my dentist, he works he worked all through the holidays too. I think he's probably low. I don't know. Like I don't know why he did that, but I would love to be able to just work Monday through Thursday. I don't know about you, Ahmed, but that sounds really nice, right? Taking off on Friday to focus on business, running practice, or really just, to have their own time, right?
Right.
With their marketing efforts, they see around 50 to 75 new patient calls a month. And that's just to schedule about 25 new patients each month. A typical practice misses 35% of those calls, right? So if you have new patient calls of 75 a month, and you've missed 35% of those calls, that's 26 calls. 75% of missed calls go unreturned because they don't have good employees, or they don't have good systems in their office. And this is again where I know that you guys help out, right? You guys will probably call back missed calls better than your average dental practice does, right?
Right.
Now let's assume your office is above average at converting a new patient call. That means roughly 50% of your new patient calls that reach a real person will end up as an appointment. That means 10 of those 20 missed calls could have become new patients. Statistically, we'll find the average new patient is worth $850, which we kind of talked about. you've just lost $8,500 in revenue this month by losing those 10 new patients. 12 months in a year, you can do the math. You've now lost over 100 grand in revenue from new patients who found a different dentist who answered the phone, right? So like, again, like if you're the first person that comes up on like a Google ad, that means you paid probably more dollars than the guy that I went with, right? But because
Yeah.
no one answered the phone, so it's wondering how many patients are they actually missing? According to our study, you're missing 35% of those, and that equates to over $100,000 a year that you're missing in revenue, which is nuts to me. Like I can't imagine if I reported this to my boss, he would be so upset with me.
Hey, right. Yeah. And these are, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but these also seem like conservative numbers, right? Like likely we're dealing with based on the
This
practice
is
side,
safe.
right?
This is
Double the
there's a
amount.
lot of buffers here, right? This is safe, right? But this
Yeah.
is this is, and we see this a lot with startups or like newer practices or de novos that don't have all their systems in place yet, or like are trying to figure it out. Um, the other thing that's really mind blowing to me as well is that a lot of times we find this with practices that have been operating for 10, 15, 20 years, and they have no idea. They got these outdated systems in place, and they have no idea that they're missing out on this much revenue. And I mean, this is the difference between early retirement and nice bonuses for your employees, or new equipment, or a nice family vacation. That the life you're trying to live is all because you have an obsolete phone system, or you don't have your remote, the right people or the right companies managing your inbound lines, right? So huge impact.
Huge impact. Yeah. I mean, for me, right, if I'm in the shoes of a practice owner, that's a world tour that I just missed out on right at the end of the year with that much revenue. So it's yeah, that's unreal. But glad Mango does exist, in that regard to actually to help with that impact. And very similarly, right, pretty drastic impacts on the hiring front. We mentioned that it takes 3+ months to find someone. The guarantee of them staying through the practice over 12 months is slim to none at this point. And what that leads to is a very overwhelmed staff, which typically leads to further retention issues. What a couple of things that we have seen other than that from in regards to impact specifically affecting the practice is increased wait times, right? If you don't have the staff in place, increase wait times on the phone, increase wait times in person. And really a big piece is a diminished patient provider interaction, right? If everyone is short staffed, we're having to run on an extremely tight schedule, falling behind less and less time from the patient and provider in regards to interaction. And overall, what does this affect? It affects your patient satisfaction score. It affects your patient engagement. And as you mentioned, right, for us as consumers, by all means, we are loyal to our dentist. But if we have gone there once or twice, if we've made one or two phone calls that have gone unanswered, very quickly our narrative will shift to the dental practice down the street, right? Resulting in further revenue loss. All in all, the impact is you're not running an efficient practice and you're suffering with an overwhelmed and unhappy staff, which directly relates to that patient experience. Hey, curious for you, Rich, have you, I know you mentioned, you in your time as a patient, you have, called several practices that ultimately didn't answer, which led you to your dentist. But I'm curious, have you ever gone into a dental practice where you just felt the vibe was off, right? Whether it be from the staff being overwhelmed or unhappy, or just wait times, things of that nature.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I think that everyone's probably had that experience until they find like someone they until they find like someone they have a better experience with.
Right.
But no, like I have definitely gone in where I felt like I was just, I don't know, cattle. Like I was just running me through the stockyard. Like yeah, now you go here, now you go here, and I was just a number. Where it's
Right.
like I'm a human being. Like I have feelings and emotions. I want to have a good experience wherever I go. I know that not everything is going to be a good experience, but like you know uh, the dentist can be kind of a intimidating thing. You have someone operating on your mouth, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
like very it's very personable, like they're right up in your face. And sometimes how you're treated there too is like, and you can feel it when the vibe's off and you're like, oh man, like this is going to be rough. They're just
Right.
not looking forward to it. And that to me leads me to like, I'm going to reschedule. I'm going to put this off. I'm not going to come in, or I go find someone else. Right. So to answer your question, yes, I've had that feeling before.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think our the time period or the patience we have probably seen from a human collective in the past has severely decreased, right? And I think we are expecting, things to go a certain way to be given a certain experience, and naturally, as a patient, if you don't receive that, on to the next, right? And how we limit that is the number one question. So, thus far we've covered some of the problems and impacts that practices are facing due to technology, specifically phone, issues, as well as hiring issues. Rich, I think this is a great point for us to talk about what practice owners are able to implement to make a change in their practice to start becoming stronger when it comes to efficiency. And I would love to hear how Mango as a solution specifically caters to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think because we work primarily with dentists, we've given a lot of thought to how does Mango really speak to the dental community. And like the first thing is that phones can be intimidating. They can be kind of like, well, this is equipment, and I don't operate in this space. I mean, no doctor or office manager was trained on VoIP or the hardware, right? But I always tell everybody this, like, look, I'm from Rockland, Idaho. It's a very small town, right? I grew up on a small farm, and believe me, like if I can use it, anyone can use Mango. So it's very user friendly. Our dashboards and our systems are easy to learn. Anyone can use it. Again, like if I can learn to use it, I promise that any office manager or dentist can learn how to use this as well. I can guarantee it. Like, I'm from a small town where we did not have ton of technology, right? And if I can figure it out, I promise that you can figure it out. And it's customizable. And we we love this idea of giving control back to the dentists,
Right.
right? Because it's their practice, they want to run it on their terms. And a lot of times software comes in or hardware comes in and says, this is what you have to do. You have to adapt to us. We're different. We're going to adapt to you. What are your needs? How do you want your call flow set up? What do you want your voicemail to say? What do you want? Who do you want to have answer new patient calls? Who do you want to have answer your billing questions? We'll set that entire system up for you. It's convenient, like, it's easy to use the schedule. It's easy to set up your in and out of office hours. So we have a mobile app, so you can take your phone anywhere, basically. I mean, I honestly, yesterday I was out of office most of the day yesterday, and I was able to manage my calls from my mobile app and still send and receive calls that way, which is great. And we integrate with most of the practice management softwares and patient engagement softwares out there. So if you have like a software you really like, we can integrate with them. And that way you don't have to worry about your phones working well with the other software you have inside of your practice. So great questions there. And this is where we feel like we stand out way better than the rest of the phone space. So the average customer support call for us at Mango Voice is less than a minute. Okay, so just want to reiterate this again. So if anyone's ever called any type of support, whether it was like an airline, or if it was a doctor's office, or if you're trying to call Verizon or AT&T, right? One of the big, phone companies out there, you're going to be on hold for much longer than 1 minute. You're going to spend a lot of time talking to machines. You're going to spend a lot of time talking to automations, and it's going to be difficult to actually get the answer you want.
Right.
Whereas with Mango, you call us in less than 50 seconds. That's the average, actually. You're going to speak to a live agent who's based in the United States. We're going to answer your questions, right? Which is huge. Onboardings. So industry average for onboardings for VoIP. So if you go with any other phone company, there's a 40% chance it's going to be done wrong the first time. A 30% chance it's going to be done wrong the second time, which I can't imagine buying something and then having it installed wrong 2 or 3 times and having the chances be that high. But there's no one that does onboardings better than Mango Voice. We have a 99.9% successful onboarding rate, and that was year to date as of last year. And so far, in 2024, we haven't had any like onboardings go awry. Like, they've all been great, right? It's very personable. It's very one-on-one. We're going to do all the heavy lifting when we do that onboarding and that setup. We're going to make it very easy for the customer. We provide free phones, so you don't have to spend extra money on the actual hardware, which is huge savings, right, on top of the savings we're already doing. And again, just going to emphasize this whole thing with Mango, and combined with like the power of Edge. Instead of missing 35% of your calls, you're only going to miss 15% of your calls, and that's an average. I mean, I think some of our practices are doing better than that, and there's no reason that any dental practice that's using Mango and Edge should be missing any of their calls, actually,
Right.
if their systems are right. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of missed revenue that you could be capturing because you're using a Mango and an Edge in your practice, right? So I think we solve a lot of the problems right there, and definitely take the stress off of your staff and from the doctor at the end of the day.
100%. I love it. And the question I have, the takeaway I have for everyone watching is, if you aren't using Mango, what in the world are you doing? When we when we look at Edge as a solution for dental practices, again, the takeaway here is that we're connecting you to global talent who are ready to get going. So some key areas where you can see benefit is the average time to hire, right? We talked about a 3-month hiring cycle. We're limiting that to 10 days to get connected to individuals who come with a very strong background, who are able to contribute. We don't want to match you with someone who is completely random, right? So what we do is we build out a job description. We understand the personality traits, the day-to-day that it takes to be successful, and we hand pick, right, who would be the right type of candidate for you. Typically, our clients are able to meet with 3 candidates, and from there, they're able to choose one that would be the best fit from that first interview. And this is a key value for us. We're finding a 98% success rate of connecting practices with the right type of candidate. Now, once they have come through the Edge program, they go through a 30-day training academy, which is called the Edge Academy. It covers the high level of the dental industry within the United States, the specific tasks, terminology that they would be associated with, and really what will set them up for success, including HIPAA compliancy and more. And ultimately for us, what we have found through doing all of the above is a 97% retention rate year over year. This, I would say, has 2 contributing factors. Number one, of course, all of the academy and background they go through to get to this position. And number 2, Edge is paying in the 95th percentile per the regions we serve in the world, right? So not only are we connecting you as a dental practice to an extremely strong team member, but we're also connecting an extremely strong potential team member to a very good salary where they're able to spread their wings and be there for the long term. All in all,
That's huge. I mean, I don't mean to cut you off, Ahmed, but I've always been curious, to know, like, what, once you get an Edge employee working for you, like, how do they get trained? And it's like they have this, it's like you have this training academy that I think is probably really cool and probably alleviates a lot of the questions that doctors probably have, right? I mean, that's where they all get trained and get onboarded. And just the fact that you have this 97.3 retention rate, that's huge. That has to be, I can't imagine anyone else is even close to that number that's in your guys' space.
Right. Yeah. So 2 things I would say. Yes, with the training program, right, what we found is the average ramp time of typically 3 to 6 months is obviously brought down severely. Our expectation is they go through this academy, they learn the ins and outs, and really once they join the practice, those additional 1 to 2 weeks of training, of shadowing, get them up to speed and get them ready to contribute at a full-time level, right? So the ramp time is severely decreased. And to your point, yes, retention rates, I mean, 97% in a climate that we're dealing with today is unheard of, right? And it's a key value for us and for our practice partners.
I mean, because I look at that number and it's like, it's because we're a business too, and we're trying to run a successful business, and we have a hard time keeping like employees at that retention rate. So I mean, I know that doctors have a much higher turnover, so that's massive right there to just have that. Because at the end of the day, I think everybody just wants peace of mind, right? And if your employees are going to just show up and do their job and consistently do that day in and day out, year after year, like, that's huge. And I can't imagine any doctor looking at that and being like, kind of to your point, what you said, like, why aren't you just doing this already? You know?
Right.
So,
We host anywhere from 15 to 25 client interviews a week to match practices with these employees, and it's the common takeaway, right? My biggest headache is staffing and technology, right? So by all means, if we're able to pair together as two organizations and relieve the headache of technology, phone systems, as well as hiring, I mean, I think practice owners would be thrilled at that opportunity. And with that, right? Again, we speak about some of the key benefits you're able to get. We spoke about a 99% success onboarding rate with Mango. Overall, you're getting a ton of professionalism. We spoke about the customer service, less than 1 minute time, the availability to ensure that any issues you might be facing, any questions you might be dealing with are answered, right? And ultimately, I would say outside of the savings, the cost effectiveness, the efficiency, the ability for your organization to scale is crystal clear when it comes to Mango and when it comes to Edge. Anything that you would add there, Rich, that I may have missed out on?
no, I mean, these bullet points are huge, and I think that everybody would just love to have a little more, time
Yeah,
and worry less, right? Again, going back to that, I think everybody just wants a little bit more peace of mind. And if you really want that, you need to have services like these. Services exist, they're out there. Mango and Edge exist, and if you want more peace of mind in your practice and you want more free time for yourself and also to capture more revenue, I mean, this is the way to do it, right? I mean, um, yeah, I think what you're talking about there is absolutely perfect. And I want to ask you the question, like, just from working like, from one company to another, what is the reaction for Edge employees when they find out an office is using Mango? What's your guys' like feeling like right away?
thank goodness. Right. I think and that's like a genuinely honest answer is we understand the integration between Edge and Mango has been seamless, but that speaks more to Mango's integration and your policies you have with other vendors, right? There are a ton of different voice solutions out there, right? But to know that we don't have to go through a headache, to know that this integration is seamless, it's amazing.
And our takeaway on our side, and just so you guys know, and we probably don't talk about this enough, is that we go back to this professionalism aspect, is that our understanding is that when we find out, hey, these guys have Edge employees, we need to set up remote extensions for them, we know that they're serious practices. And
Yeah,
we know that they're actually taking their business to another level.
right.
So that's been our experience. And we don't have any problems with these. These practices are, they know exactly what they want. They have real intent. They have
Yep.
good goals. They're very specific about what needs need to be met, and so our experience has been practices that come to us and say, yeah, we're setting up an extension for our Edge remote employee. They have their ducks in a row. They're serious about what they're going to accomplish this year, and I think that speaks volumes to the dentists themselves that are finding services like yours and Mango and saying we want to take our practice to the next level. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it goes great together that way.
Absolutely. And you know what we did is today we wanted to really discuss the high level, right? The high level of Mango, the high level of Edge. What we did not do is really dive into the platforms that both organizations have, right? The ability to manage your phone systems, manage all calls in one area in an extremely efficient manner to properly manage the employees you bring in, but the ability to scale through the Edge ecosystem and platform, right? These are key areas where practices are able to take that next step of efficiency. We appreciate everyone for joining us today. Rich, I appreciate you for taking some time with me. If you are interested in learning more about Mango, Rich is your guy. You'll see his contact information on the screen. If you are looking for more information on Edge and how you're able to bring in a remote employee to your practice, there's my email as well. We will post the calendar links to both of our availabilities. Rich, any last takeaways for you as we conclude here today?
Yeah, just gonna throw this out there too, that if they mention to Mango like that they're using Edge, we'll take 15% off their quote, off their bill. If they want to sign up with our services and they're utilizing Edge, we'll give them like a nice little discount that way. And I just go back to like, it's a no-brainer if you actually have the time to consider, what you want to do. Like there's savings all across the board. There's new revenue to capture across the board, and there's more peace of mind to have, from using Mango and Edge. And I don't know what your hesitation is, but if there is any, schedule a demo with you, schedule a demo with me, and we'll get you guys taken care of. Yeah.
You heard it here first. Mention Edge, get a good discount, and definitely we would love the opportunity to meet each of our practice owners and get an understanding of how we can help. Well, Rich, thank you again for taking time with us today. We look forward to the continued partnership.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
All right. Take care.